Hello and welcome to the video. This again is a slightly different video from the kind of normal stuff that I do. This down here is Andrew. Say hello, Andrew.
Hello.
And Andrew is a friend of mine. We've been friends for a couple of years now. Some of you may recognize the face. He is known as Frank on Let's Drone Out, which is confusing for everybody. Linked in the description to the Let's Drone Out podcast. If you listen to podcasts regularly, you're into the hobby, and you haven't checked out LDO, then please do. It's a group of guys talking about the hobby, as well as unicorns and all kinds of other things. So it will entertain you on those long car journeys. It definitely does for me. But the reason that, and see, I was going to call you Frank then, Andrew, apologies. The reason that Andrew is here is Andrew has been directly involved in some of the conversations regarding the legislation that's going to affect us here in the UK later on in 2019. Now, I've had lots of questions on the channel here by people wanting to a little bit more clarification about what it is, how it works, how it's going to affect us. Is the 250 gram limit with or without the battery? If I have a 250 gram drone, do I have to does that mean I don't have to register? There's lots and lots of confusion. And one of the things that I've noticed is, depending on who you watch and how well they've read and understood the process and how up to date they are with the process, because it's changing, then it's confusing everybody. And it also, you know what confuses me? So Andrew is the man that I go to ask the questions of. So a massive thank you to Andrew for putting time aside tonight to come and talk and provide a little bit of update for all of us on where we are with this. The kind of things that I kind of want to get out this call is what do we know? Because everything has been changing. You and I had a chat. I'll put a kind of an insert on the other side of this screen here, probably about 8 months ago now, when this was all kicking around. There was all the consultations happening that may or may not have actually made any difference at all. And everything's moved on a lot. So what do we know now? What's still yet to be decided? Because I know not everything is. So that will be interesting, because we can talk about the timescales. Things like, does the 250 gram include batteries or not? Because there's confusion even at that very, very low level. What can you fly without registering? Does it apply to fixed wing? So if I have a fixed wing with a flight controller, is that a UAV? Does that mean I have to register if it's over 250? There's all that stuff. With all that stuff, and I know you've done some prep for this, Andrew, so thank you again for doing this. Can I hand over to you, and can you kind of run through where we are and what we know, what we don't know, and what we might need to do in a couple of months' time?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the very first thing to kick off, just to reassure everyone that don't run around trying to register somewhere. There is nowhere you can register yet. It doesn't exist. It's not out there. So calm down. You don't have to worry. There's nothing you have to do yet. But please do pay attention to what's going on, because a lot is changing. There's a lot of calls by the UK model flying associations asking for people to throw their voice in and chime in and be heard, because a lot of things are still being decided. When we spoke at Weston Park, the general feel of things was, we don't know what's going on. Things are coming out left, right and centre, and then have gone quiet. And now at the end of June, there has been another load of information come out, which is going to change everything again. So we knew already that at October, November this year, 2019, there will be a registration system coming online, and we will have to all be registered in November. We'll have to register to fly anything above 250 grams. But the rules have evolved again, so that even under 250 grams, there's a good chance that you'll need to register come July 2020. This is all quite new. Things are still being worked out. There's a lot of reading to do. I've tried to read everything I can, but I'm sure a lot of it will be clarified. The best places to keep an eye on updates will be here, I'm sure. LDO, I'll try and chime in when I can. But there's, for the official information, BMFA and FPV UK, they are working together that's how much stuff is going on. Is that the VMFA and FPV UK are combining forces along with the Scottish Model Flying Association and a large Model Flying Association. We're all joining together. So if you're following your relevant area in those, then I'm sure you'll hear about updates. But yeah, up until recently, all we knew is that October, November, there will be registration. But as of the beginning of June, the EU put out some it's called implementation regulations, which is sort of saying, these are the rules that we want you to bring in. This is the kind of framework. There's a lot of things that each individual country can decide on the details, but this is roughly what it's going to be. At the beginning of July, the UK are going to bring this into UK law, and so that means that for July 2020, it is going to be actually enforced. And so what the new rules are, it involves lots of different weight classes, lots of different areas in distances, and there's a lot of detail to go into. But I think it's probably best just to start off with the very basic things of what is the registration that's going to happen this year. So the registration system is, the first contract for it, which I've got up here, was sorted out in August 2018, and this was awarded to a company called BJSS to put together a public system for registering. And this they were awarded for the interesting sum of, I can't find it here, but it was around £87,000. Oh, is my internet gone?
No, I can. No, I'm just listening intently. If you want, I can move around more.
No, is you'd frozen with your eyes half closed, which I assumed was not good.
That might be just me thinking. If he does that, just carry on. I will let you know if there's a problem. But no, I'm wrapped. Please carry on.
Okay. But yeah, so the BJSS had been awarded a contract for £87,500 to build a public beta system for registration. In November last year, I was invited along with a number of other people to go and speak to them about how this is going to work. We were taken through kind of the sorts of things that they were going to be looking at, what the sorts of people were that they were going to be involved, all this sort of thing. And I was also contacted to find some people to test some prototypes out in early this year as well. So this system has been built, it's been on the books far previous to Gatwick. So anyone saying that this is all because of Gatwick is wrong. It's been happening a long time before then, but it has definitely got it up into the news so people know about it. Which maybe that's good for us, that we all know that this is happening. But there we go. It's been going a lot further back than that. But yes, so there's two sides to the registrations. There is the operator and there is the pilot. So an operator owns drones, model aircraft, whatever, and a pilot is the one actually piloting it at the time. And both will have to register if you're. So even if how this is meant to work is that for a commercial enterprise, for example, the business owns the drones and then a pilot comes along and flies them. Mm-hmm. For us as hobbyists, we would be considered operators and pilots because we own our own drones. But interestingly, only the operators have to pay the £16.50. Pilots do not.
Right.
So this has opened up some questions about how is that sort of relationship going to work with hobbyists. So there is some plans which it would probably be worth keeping your ear to the ground about. for the UK Model Flying Associations to work themselves in as operators so that members would then be pilots. Again, this is something where the associations are having to, still work their way through this, so who knows?
Caveat, caveat, caveat. Let's assume then, as operators and pilots, we're going to have to do this £16.50 or whatever it is later on in the year. Is there any idea of what that looks like? And are we going to have to go to a testing centre? Do we have to give urine samples? What's involved in going through this registration process?
Well, this is the thing: is it's been very specifically never a license. Because a license would require a medical examination due to international air laws for particular reasons.
Okay.
So it's very specifically not a license. There is a remote pilot's license, but we don't have to worry about that unless you're flying something over 25 kilos. And yeah, that's quite something. In November, it will be this foundation test. So that is 40 multiple choice questions online. The content of those questions is, I'm sure, still being worked on and agreed with various people. But it's probably going to be the same sort of things that you see in the BMFA test or the DJI login, sort of when you sign up on the DJI. It's going to be those sorts of basic questions of, should you be flying near people? And you say no. It's probably going to be that sort of thing.
Okay.
It's not going to be anything massively to panic about, because also it's online, where there's also Google. So if there's anything you're struggling on, I imagine you'll be able to work around it. So the multiple choice questions, all that sort of that foundation test, that is going to be valid for 5 years.
Right.
But if you're registering as an operator, that registration fee is only going to last for 1 year, which is where the concerns about cost have come in, because the cost to build and run the system has grown from the £87,500 that was in the original contract, was recently officially published as something like £2.1 billion, and has been unofficially quoted at something like £4 million to build and then £2 million to run, or something ridiculous. And the other question is, are we really going to have that many people registering and actually paying that fee? The reason the fee has to cover the cost of it is because the CAA. So it might be worth going back through sort of how the sort of hierarchy works. So there's the MPs making the decisions. They farm that out to the Department for Transport, which is the government organisation about transport, but they have then farmed it out to the CAA, who are quasi-autonomous, non-governmental organisations. So they are technically a business, but owned by the government. So they basically have to not make a loss.
An unelected body of individuals.
Yes, so they're chosen to run everything, and they get their costs paid by the government when they can't cover it, but they're meant to cover it all the time. So that's why they're going, okay, we've got this many users, it costs this much, we'll divide the one by the other, and we've got £16.50.
Yeah.
And that's where the £16.50 has come from. But the cost has gone up, and it looks like the number of operators is going down. So that sounds a bit concerning, but who knows? Right. It's all up in the air. That could change. It's £16.50 this year. The question is, what will it be next year? But as long as the associations are dealing with it, and we can pay 30 odd quid for our public liability insurance and membership and everything else, then who cares?
Yeah. Can I ask you a question then? While we're talking about up in the air, that's a great segue. Any new rules in terms of maximum ceiling and things like that? Is anything changing on that front as part of this new legislation?
Absolutely. So the latest, what's called Cap 1789, they've separated this out into the different types of aircraft and the different scenarios where you might be flying. Interestingly, for hobbyists, this is no longer going to differentiate between commercial and non-commercial. So currently, and all the way up through to July 2020, the rule is you cannot be better off at the end of the day from flying than when you started.
So when you say better off, you mean financially better off? Not kind of in a more zen, relaxed place from a day at the field, right? Okay. So if you earn money or you're charging somebody for flying, then that is a commercial flight and has to be accommodated and looked after as such.
Absolutely.
Okay.
There's some rules out for prizes for competitive flying, but it's basically it's got to be recreational. You can't be doing it, as a way of making money. So that is going to completely change come July 2020, and there is going to be no separation based on commercial use. So that's interesting for a lot of us, I imagine. What will change is how easy it is to fly anywhere. The current rules are that you have to fly more than 30 meters away when taking off or landing, and 50 meters away generally from people or vehicles or
people,
obstacles.
pets or property. Yeah,
that's pretty much going to be a mainstay of this, except you will need what's called a certificate of competency, which is going to be a stickler, I imagine. This is not going to be fun. People are not going to enjoy this bit. It's an additional 30 multiple choice questions.
Right.
So it doesn't sound that bad, but it will be done at a test centre. It won't be a Department for Transport test centre. It's not going to be along with your hazard perception tests or whatever else. It's not that sort of test centre, but it will be run by some other organisation, such as the where you would currently get your PFCOs.
Yep.
But looking through it, I reckon again that the model flying associations will probably find a way to get themselves included in this area. It does open up some doors. So what they've decided is that if you have I'm going to have to definitely check my notes here, because they've got 3 different areas that you can fly. So A1 is over people, A2 is kind of standard flying of 30 meters away, takeoff or landing, 50 meters away for some slightly bigger stuff. But they've also included 5 meters away from people not under your control if you have a low speed mode that you can engage, which is a bit weird. But
okay, that's a very random. I wonder, do we think that DJI is involved somewhere like that?
A lot of this, I imagine. There's also there's a weight class at somewhere that's 900 grams. That's not occurred anywhere besides. Oh, it's the weight of the Mavic Pro. I see. But yeah, so the A1, A2, and A3 are their scenarios for where you're flying. So A1 is over people, A2 is kind of near people, and A3 is absolutely the middle of nowhere.
Right, the middle of the Peak District. Right. Awesome.
Yes, so it's got to be 150 meters away from any area that's used for residential, commercial, or industrial or recreational areas, and there is a reasonable expectation that no people will be in that area at all. You're going to struggle to find that, but that is their definition of middle of nowhere, and that's safe to fly a lot of things. But if we go through the weight classes, although I've said weight classes, it's a bit more technical than that, but it's a good way for us to understand it, because up to now, that's what we've always understood it is,
250 and then 250 to 7k, 7k and above.
To 25 and 25, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's a bit more complicated than that. So what it is, it's going to be, if you've seen the CE marks that you see on toys and things, there's these standards to say this is safe for what people expect to be able to do with it, and it gets a stamp to say that it's passed. And what these are so like on fireworks, you get F1 is safe indoor kind of, and it all goes up to crazy silly ones. We're going to have that same kind of ranking of drones. So there's going to be this nice new design of stamp that is going to be on RTFs, ARTFs, or kits sold.
Right.
So unless you're very, very keen, it's not going to apply to privately built stuff. So if you buy parts from here and parts from there and put them together, that's going to there's other rules for that as well. But if you're buying a ready to fly, or you're buying an almost ready to fly, or you're buying a box with all the bits in, it's going to be required to have one of these stamps on. So there's C0, so they're all C's. So it's C0 to C4. C4 isn't an explosive, although arguably.
Well, the way it's been regulated at the moment, you could certainly, argue that it's been treated like one. So
C0 is basically a toy. It's up to 250 grams, which sounds good. We're on comfortable ground, but there's a maximum speed limit that it can fly. If it can fly more than 19 meters per second, which is about 40 miles an hour, if it can go more than 40 miles an hour, it's not included.
Right. Okay. So something like this that we've all been looking at. This is the one of the new little kind of sub 250 grams that we've all been looking at, trying to figure out. Because this little thing will do about 100 kilometers an hour. This is not a C0.
Exactly.
Oh, bum.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But also, so it's got a speed limit on it. It's also got a range limit on it. So if it can fly more than 120 meters away from you, then it's not valid. It won't be a C0.
So there's a very, very defined set of even voltages, range, whether it has to be geofenced, maximum speed. So it's very low speed toys that have geofencing that I'm sure large manufacturers are already getting ready to release with the C0 sticker on it, so we can all fly. And so unless you want to buy a DJI or somebody else's pre-made product, we ain't going to be doing that, because let's face it, going at 19 meters a second and only limited to 24 volts, most of us are going to fall asleep. C2 isn't really us, is it? Because that's 4K.
Well, this is up to 4K, but the C1 to C3, I don't think currently exist. I don't think the technology currently exists to meet these requirements. I think they have set these requirements up to give everyone a challenge to build something that they've been trying to do in the general aviation world for many, many years and failed, and that is electronic conspicuity. It is...
What the hell is that?
Exactly. So what this is they want to be able, when you're in a field and you see a drone flying in the distance, or you're in the city and there's one flying above you, they want you to be able to whip your phone out and go, that is that drone. They want you to be able to pick out the registration number, the pilot, where it is, how fast it's going, all these sorts of things.
Hang on a minute. Okay, microlights don't have to do that. Para motors, I know this is something I'm currently looking at doing, don't have to do that. There's actually less regulation for me to strap a petrol engine onto my back and jump off the side of a cliff under a canopy and go and bugger about than there is to currently fly a 400 gram UAV.
Oh yes. So
I've understood that right?
Yes.
Okay, that's disappointing.
They've been trying to do this. They've been meeting up and trying to work out how to do this with all the general aviation, from paragliders to typhoons to whatever, and haven't been able to do it. And they've seen, okay, let's give these guys a challenge and see what they can come up with. And if they can do it, then if it can be fitted to a drone, then we can fit it to everything else.
So, Andrew, I'm just conscious we've been going for a little while now. It sounds like there's a lot of things that have still got to be decided, and they're trying to implement lots of things in the hobby that isn't available in general aviation, and I'm sure that will all shake out. If you can keep me up to date and if I can get you back on here to keep us abreast of those changes, that would be great. But what do we know now, and what do we know that we have to do and that we have to prepare for? Absolutely.
So up to November, carry on as you are. If you're commercial, you've got your PFCO. If not, you're doing whatever you're doing.
Okay.
From November till next July, you will have to register on the new CAA registration website with the 30 questions.
Okay.
From July next year, if you want to fly anything, pretty much, if you've built it yourself, up to 250 grams, you'll be able to fly pretty much anywhere with a CofC rather, certificate of competency, and that's the extra 40 questions at a test centre.
The extra 30 questions at a test centre, or however many, or is that not decided?
So it's so the foundation test, sorry, with the registration is 40, but the certificate of competency is 30.
Right.
So with that certificate of competency, you'll be able to fly up to 250 grams, pretty much, wherever you like, as per currently.
Yeah.
From 250 up, we're still kind of working that one out. And from 2 kilos up, you'll have to be 50 meters away from people, but you will need to have a certificate of competency to do anything. Where we get these, who we get them from, we don't know. How much it's going to cost, we don't know. What the questions are going to be, we don't know. But that's what we know for now.
All right, Andrew, that has been fantastically useful. Thank you so much for the time. So it sounds like we all need to raid the piggy bank if you want to fly legally and pay the £16.50. If you and I can keep talking, and as maybe in another 3 or 4 months, as things start to shake out and some of this wackiness that's currently in discussion shakes down, then maybe we can have another chat and kind of inform the community. But can I just say, on behalf of everybody, that makes me feel a little bit better. It's not that there's loads of stuff going on that I'm not aware of. It's just that there's only a very small list of things actually been decided, and everything else up is still pretty much up for grabs.
Absolutely, don't panic. Keep listening.
I think there's something actually going on with Let's Drone Out at the moment. So I'm releasing this at the weekend, about the 6th or 7th of July.
So very recently, they will have been posted up across all the podcasting platforms. So whether that's SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, all the rest. The 200th episode of Let's Drone Out, where Jack will have gathered together, begged, borrowed and stolen many prizes, which we're launching a competition for to award on our 4th year anniversary episode, where we're going to bring on quite a few guests, and it's going to be a mayhem. I mean, it's usually mayhem, but it's going to be even more mayhem, and there's going to be prizes and things. So if you tune into Let's Drone Out, you will hear all about the details of the competition. The podcasts are censored, the live ones are not. We consider it as a recorded version of the chat you have down at the field with your mates. It's not scripted, it's not sensible.
That should be the byline under the Let's Drone Out. It's not scripted, it's not sensible. Fabulous. Andrew, thanks again very much for the time, and
thank you for having me on.
You're more than welcome. If you have any questions, then pop them down below. What I'll do is then I'll collate them all, and next time we have Andrew on, we'll try and make sure that we cover all of them. Thanks for watching the video and watching right to the very end. You can find me in all the usual places on social media, and if you like the video and like what I'm doing here, then hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification icon too. If you really like what I'm doing, you can go the extra mile and become one of my Patreons for access to me directly for support, and also giveaways and regular updates too. If you're looking for particular content, then check out the playlist. I organise all of my videos into playlists, so if you're looking for a particular topic, you can find everything here. If it's called Introduction To, it's designed to start very simply and build on that simple introduction to teach you all about it. If it's called For Beginners, then that is really aimed at people who are brand new to that part of the hobby. You can also search on YouTube for anything that you're interested in using the search function at the top. So iNav Painless 360 will find all of my videos and even the playlists around iNav. So thanks again for watching, and happy flying.